assignments there. So while we wait on this news conference to start, we are going to go ahead and move on to some more local news here in Central Florida, where this morning investigators are blaming celebratory gunfire for 2 deaths on New Year's Day. One, a woman from Osceola County, the other a 10-year-old girl from Miami. Fox 35's Amanda McKenzie has more this morning on this kind of incident that police say really happens way too often this time of year.
Unfortunately, it's not only extremely dangerous, but illegal. Right now, Kissimmee police officers are working to find the person responsible for firing that deadly shot that claimed the life of a beloved mother and grandmother. Kissimmee police say 56-year-old Carmen Ochoa was shot and killed on New Year's Eve. She was struck by a stray bullet while sitting on her porch watching fireworks. All of the celebrations quickly turned to panic as police rushed to her quiet neighborhood on Gull Court. Investigators believe the bullet came from someone who fired shots into the air to ring in the new year.
She's my second mother. Unfortunately, she's not here anymore. She was just looking at the fireworks, and then all of a sudden, in the blink of an eye, she's shot on the floor.
In Miami, officers say 10-year-old Yanalise Munguia was killed by celebratory gunfire as she and her family were ringing in the new year outdoors. The Miami-Dade Police Department saying in part, quote, "This heartbreaking incident serves as a devastating reminder that what goes up must come down. Bullets fired into the air can take innocent lives." Law enforcement says the risk of being killed by celebratory gunfire is higher than that of a typical shooting, and they say that has to do with the angle in which the bullet was fired. Now, if you have any information on either of these 2 deadly shootings, you can contact law enforcement. Tips can be made anonymously by calling Crime Line at 1-800-423-TIPS.
What you saw there in the other box, we will continue to put these things in split boxes so you can monitor, so you know you're not missing anything from New Orleans. There was a mic check just a moment ago. We are still standing by for the start of that news conference any minute now. A sailboat has been stuck on the shore at New Smyrna Beach for a week and a half now. Today, crews are expected to start working on it and try to get it out of there. Fox 35's Morgan Parrish has an update on that boat for us this morning.
Hey Gary, good morning. Yeah, so this has become really an attraction here in New Smyrna Beach. This boat has been stuck here for a week and a half, and everybody that's been walking by, they've been taking pictures, they've been stopping and looking at it. We do know that crews are expected to come out here working on it today, but we're not exactly sure what time. But this is the 1977 Erickson 34 named Decoy, and it's been beached here since December 22nd. And according to the vessel's owner, he actually was stuck in some rough water, and then he actually got stranded out here on New Smyrna Beach. So that's the reason why this boat is still in the water. There's been several failed attempts to remove it, and now the boat is actually listed by the captain on Craigslist for $1. And then we actually got closer to it a little bit ago, and we saw there was a sign on it that actually says for free. So for $1, you can come out here and bring home the sailboat. But again, it is just becoming a popular photo op, and the plan of attack is all depending on the condition of the sailboat's hull. So like I said, we do know that crews are expected to come out here to get it out of the water today, but we're just not sure what time. So in the meantime, people are stopping by, looking at it. We just ran into a firefighter who had no idea this was out here. He was actually doing inspections at a building across the street, and he's like, what is going on? So this is the main photo op in New Smyrna Beach this week, and hopefully crews do get it out sometime later on today. For now, reporting in New Smyrna Beach, I'm Morgan Parrish, Fox 35 News.
We are still standing by right now for the start of this news conference in Louisiana. An update on the New Orleans attack, what is being investigated as a terrorist attack on Bourbon Street on early New Year's morning. We are going to take a quick break here on Fox 35 News Plus. We'll be right back after this, and if that news conference begins while we're in break, we'll go ahead and come back a little early. So sit tight. We'll be right back. Keep it here on Fox Local. Fox 35 Storm Team meteorologist Brooks Garner joins me now, and Brooks, really starting to feel that cool down out there that you've been talking about.
Oh yes, Garrett, and this is stage one of two very noticeable stages of a cool down that may indeed bring the coldest weather of the winter to Central Florida over the next maybe 2.5 weeks. This morning temperatures were some 15 to 20 degrees colder than yesterday at this time, and driven by the wind, it made it feel obviously very chilly. So sweater weather for a lot of us, that's for sure. 61 degrees in Titusville today by this hour, about 63 by 2. We'll probably top out around 64 degrees there. Away from the water today, though, a little bit warmer, but not by much. 67 by forecast high for Orlando. Well, if you're traveling today, heading down I-10 toward New Orleans or Houston, it'll be in the low 60s there. Going north to Atlanta, 50 degrees. Raleigh-Durham in the 40s, but down in Miami, about 76 degrees. Whether you're driving or flying, it will be a lot different depending on where you go. We're kind of in the middle of the comfortable warm stuff in the downright, well, you could say early winter chill. I guess we're almost toward midwinter, but it technically just started at the end of December, so I think we can still say early winter. It's just been cold for so long across the northern tier already this season, with high pressure coming in from that region, bringing with it the characteristics of what you might find in the plains, which are frosty mornings and cool afternoons. Well, if you're looking for real winter, and this is sort of our daily reminder from our perch here in Florida, look no further than the Great Lakes region, where this morning in Pennsylvania, lake effect snow is producing whiteout conditions in Edinburgh, Pennsylvania, for instance. Take my word for it, Edinburgh's somewhere there in the snow squall. That's quite the shot. It was funny too because they'd had 4 or 5 inches of snow this morning, just this morning, like in a couple of hours, and the school buses were picking up the kids like it was no thing. It was pretty classic. It's like a grandpa's story. You know, I had to go to school in 3 feet of snow, uphill both ways. That's literally what these kids were doing. They were somehow walking uphill both ways and standing in all that snow, and there comes the bus. Oh well. 66 in Bushnell. Hard to complain about our cooler weather here in Florida when you see pictures like that. 67 Orlando, 62 New Smyrna, and 68 degrees today in Mico. Now, if you're going to the beaches, it'll be closer to 60 degrees at the beach and a lot of wind coming in from onshore, so make sure you bundle up. But in the big picture, looking ahead to the weekend of January 10th and 11th and 12th, that is Friday, Saturday, Sunday of the Disney Marathon, as well as late as January 16th, there's a high likelihood that we're going to be significantly below normal. It doesn't guarantee that it's going to be anything that's like record-breaking, but there's at least potential in the atmosphere that we may see temperatures dipping into the 20s and 30s at night and highs only in the 40s and 50s during the day. And obviously with the Disney Marathon, for instance, on that Sunday morning, a lot of people will be watching the weather. There's also a chance that we may have a little bit of a break from this cold where we get just a little bit of warm air into Florida, making for a more comfortable marathon weekend. Crossing my fingers for all the runners and spectators for that event, usually held here in Orlando this time of year because it's warmer. 67 degrees today, 68 degrees tomorrow. Looking ahead to Saturday, it'll be cool down, 62, that's it on Saturday. Then we bounce back to 71 on Sunday, and then mid-70s for Monday. And just as you think, oh, okay, cool, we're back to the nice stuff. We'll get a couple of showers and then boom, back to the chilly air. In fact, it looks like we're not going to get out of the 50s on Tuesday. And with the wind, that is going to feel very chilly all day long. Wednesday, only about 60 degrees, and it looks like by the end of next week, we may start to see those overnight frosts and freezes. But it's funny, Garrett, how it works out this time of year in this area because it kind of starts to look hopeless, you know, as far as the cold weather goes. You got all that snow up north, you got word of the polar vortex and the Arctic outbreaks, but as soon as it rolls in, it's out of here, and suddenly February rolls around, and we're already looking at like a warming trend. Yeah. So spring here comes early.
All right, that is good news. Something to look forward to for sure. Fox 35 Storm Team meteorologist Brooks Garner, we appreciate you joining us.
Thank you, Garrett. My pleasure.
All right, and we are still standing by for this news conference to begin. We were just given a bit of a warning, so we do expect that to start momentarily. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back in just a minute.
watching Fox 35 News Plus, streaming on Fox Local.
Welcome back into Fox 35 News Plus. I'm Garrett Weimer. Thanks for joining us on this Thursday morning, live on fox35orlando.com, the Fox 35 News app, and on Fox Local. You see there, we are still awaiting the start of this news conference in New Orleans, where we expect an update any minute now into the investigation into the terrorist attack on Bourbon Street in New Orleans on early New Year's morning. So around 3 o'clock yesterday morning, that's when investigators say Shamsuddin Jabbar, a 42-year-old man from Houston, drove a truck he was renting into a crowd there. Killed 15 people is the latest number we were told. Dozens of others also wounded. I can also give you a live picture now. This is looking toward Bourbon Street from Canal Street in New Orleans. You can see investigators, police still on the scene there. It is still very much a crime scene, still being investigated right now, still being blocked off right now. The mobile command unit that was there blocking this view for much of yesterday has left, but you still see the yellow crime scene tape up. You still see some wooden barricades up, police cruisers, as this is very much still part of an active investigation. We know that the FBI has said they don't believe Jabbar acted alone. There may be some information on that changing. We will see if they have maybe been able to rule that out. They said yesterday that they were looking for some accomplices. We may have new information on that today, seeing some conflicting reports from national media about that. So hoping for some clarification from investigators on that here shortly. But the FBI has searched multiple states in this search for accomplices. We know they searched Jabbar's rental house in New Orleans. We also know that they searched his home in Houston, where he was from. Now, this is especially concerning right now because of the timing of this. Big crowds in New Orleans, obviously, with it being the New Year's holiday. The Sugar Bowl was scheduled to be last night in New Orleans at the Superdome. That has been postponed until this afternoon, 4 o'clock this afternoon. So a big focus yesterday, and what we also expect to be a big focus today is officials giving an update on whether they do believe there may be other people involved, and also the status of the explosive devices. We know a couple were found in the French Quarter and rendered safe. So we're hoping for some more details about all of this. You can understand the concern, especially in that area with so many people there, and the concern over safety going forward as to whether there might be other things that could be going on. There was an ISIS flag found flying from Jabbar's truck that he was renting, and that investigators say he plowed into that crowd before getting out, and then ended up being killed in a shootout with police. So just a moment ago, we saw the New Orleans police chief, Ann Kirkpatrick, walk by. She is out of frame right now. You're seeing a little bit of the Attorney General there from the state of Louisiana. We heard from her yesterday in the news conference. We do expect the governor to be here again today, and a number of other officials as well. So we are waiting for this news conference to begin any minute now. It is expected to begin, and hoping for some new details. This is a different location. It looks like this may be at the Louisiana State Police headquarters instead of the New Orleans Police Department, where the news conference was held yesterday. We are going to take this news conference in full when it begins. You won't miss any of it. We know there's a lot of attention on this, and rightfully so. So once this begins, we're going to listen in here, and we will listen until it is over. Several of the people we expect to hear from, it looks like we have seen walk in this room, but we may still be waiting on some more. Now, about several minutes ago now, before we took our break, we were given, crews on the scene there, were given a 2-minute warning. So we do expect this to begin any minute now. This update on the terrorist attack in New Orleans. A lot of questions still remaining about it. We don't know how many of those questions they might be willing to answer today. The governor had some strong words yesterday as reporters asked questions, and he was at times not wanting investigators to even answer some questions because they are, he said they didn't want to jeopardize the investigation. So we will see if they are a little more forthcoming now as time continues to pass. It's been more than 24 hours since this incident first happened, 3 o'clock in the morning, early yesterday morning. So we will just have to wait and see. But we do expect this news conference to begin any minute now, and hopefully provide some sort of clarification on whether there are accomplices. So Fox News actually reporting just a little bit ago that some of this information has changed as far as whether this man was a lone wolf. In fact, Fox News reporting right now that the FBI is going to say that the Bourbon Street terrorist was a lone wolf. So that is the newest reporting. It appears that they have ruled out that other accomplices may have been involved, but we will stand by and wait to hear those details any minute now as we wait on the start of this news conference in New Orleans. This is also an incident that has many people worried for their safety in public, and so this morning on Good Day Orlando,
Dave,
let me
as you
stop
know,
that there.
not only this.
We are waiting on this news conference to start here, and I apologize for being a little quick on that button there. But I do want to play for you an interview from Good Day Orlando this morning. Security expert Dave Benson on Good Day Orlando talking about what people should keep in mind if they are concerned for their safety. Actually, it looks like the governor is stepping up right now, so let's go ahead and listen in.
All ready? We good? All right, well, good morning. I first want to start off by reminding the citizens of Louisiana that as you travel around the state, you will see the flags of all state buildings at half-mast in honor of those lives that were lost in this horrific act of violence. I also think that it's important to remember that what happened yesterday was akin to those who are old enough to remember jigsaw puzzles, and that you would take a 1,000-piece jigsaw puzzle and you empty the box, and you've got to start sifting through those pieces, and you want to start, if you're real good, you start at the corners, right? Try to put your corners together. And from yesterday to today, over 1,000 law enforcement agents and officers, men and women, have been poring over countless amounts of data, of videos, of surveillances, interviews, tracking down every possible lead that came to us, whether it was the New Orleans Police Department, the Louisiana State Police, the FBI, or our other federal agencies. Also yesterday, I issued an emergency declaration. That declaration was meant to streamline resources and communications between state, local, and federal partners. And we're seeing the results of it. I also would like to remind everyone that what's going on in this city and this state is twofold. We've got an active criminal investigation going on, while we're also continuing to secure the city in preparation for 3 o'clock kickoff time for the Sugar Bowl. With that, I would also remind those who are in the city that as far as state resources are concerned, we have the Louisiana State Police, the Louisiana National Guard, which was part of that emergency declaration, which allowed us to put an entire MP company on the ground. those become force multipliers, is what we call that in law enforcement and the military. That helps to add to the resources that we have. Wildlife and Fisheries, the Department of Corrections, DSF, DHS, our Veterans Affairs, our Probation and Parole, all state agencies. Any state agency who has a post-certified officers are here in this city to help secure the city. And so with that, I would like to turn it over to Christopher Rea, who is the Deputy Assistant Director of the FBI's Counter Terrorism Division. Chris?
Thank you, Governor Landry. Good morning. I am FBI Deputy Assistant Director Christopher Rea. I'm from our Counterterrorism Division at headquarters. I'm also joined by Assistant Special Agent in Charge Alethea Duncan from our New Orleans office, who you heard from yesterday. I'm here to discuss not only the latest investigative information we have here in New Orleans, but I'll also let you know about other investigative activities outside of the state. I first, and most importantly, want to send our deepest condolences to the victims of this horrific attack and their loved ones. 14 innocent victims were killed in this senseless attack, and at least 35 are injured. We cannot ease the grief people in this community and across the nation are feeling at this time, but rest assured, we stand with you and in support of you. All the resources, and I'm going to go into that a little bit later, all the resources of the FBI are being focused on tracking down every piece of evidence, every lead, every interview, every potential lead we've got. While I won't be able to answer all your questions today, my goal is to be as forthcoming as possible with you on what we've uncovered so far. First and foremost, let me be very clear about this point. This was an act of terrorism. It was premeditated and an evil act. This was obviously a critical incident, and with that, lots of information and tips come pouring in from law enforcement, first responders, and the public. We have been aggressively running down these tips and information. As you all know, that takes time, and we will continue to do so until every lead has been followed through on. This investigation is only a little more than 24 hours old. So I ask you to keep in mind that as I go through some of the specifics later. But at this point, currently, and this is another fact I want to be clear on, we do not assess at this point that anyone else involved in this attack except for Shamsa Din Jabbar, the subject you've already been briefed on. A little bit about what the FBI is doing. So we are surging people and assets to the area from across the region and across the nation. Special agents in multiple field offices across the country have been deployed and are assisting with potential aspects of this investigation and following up on every lead. Additional teams of special agents, professional staff, and victim specialists continue to arrive to provide more investigative power and assistance to the victims and their families. We have also forward deployed a number of our critical incident response group assets, including members of our hostage rescue team, special agent bomb technicians, and crisis management coordinators. In addition, we have deployed more evidence response technicians to continue to process the various scenes that we have. So far, we have received just over 400 tips from the public, and that information is being followed up on both here in New Orleans and across the country. Some of the tips are here in New Orleans, and there are other tips in other states across the country that we are following up on. The FBI team and our law enforcement partners here are also reviewing hundreds of hours of surveillance and other video from both the French Quarter and other locations. As for a timeline, at this point, investigators believe Jabbar picked up the rented F-150 in Houston, Texas on December 30th. He then drove from Houston to New Orleans on the evening of the 31st, and he posted several videos to an online platform proclaiming his support for ISIS. There were 5 videos posted on Jabbar's Facebook account, which are time-stamped beginning at 1:29 a.m. and the last at 3:02 a.m. In the first video, Jabbar explains he originally planned to harm his family and friends, but was concerned the news headlines would not focus on the, quote, war between the believers and the disbelievers, end quote. Additionally, he stated he had joined ISIS before this summer. He also provided a will and testament. FBI and ATF. FBI, we have a couple different scenes at the location. We have released the scene at Bourbon Street. That scene has been released. We also have a scene off of Mandeville address where we're currently searching that scene right now. FBI and ATF agents have secured that house, and that location is being searched for potential evidence. On New Year's morning, Jabbar opened fire after ramming through a blocked-off area of Bourbon Street, used his truck as a weapon to run over the victims. Teams of specially trained victim specialists, again, as I said, are on the ground here in New Orleans, assisting survivors of the attack and loved ones of the deceased. We do not believe the public is in any danger around any of these locations. 3 phones linked to Jabbar have been recovered, and digital media exploitation is a priority to see what is on the devices and determine if there are any other potential leads. Additionally, we have recovered 2 laptops and are currently reviewing them for any potential leads. Those laptops were recovered at the Mandeville address. Evidence technicians will also be going over the F-150 truck Jabbar was driving. As you know, we recovered an ISIS flag from the back of the vehicle. Jabbar declared his support for the terrorist group on social media, as I stated before, as he made his way to New Orleans. FBI bomb technicians also recovered 2 IEDs in coolers, one from the cross-section of Bourbon and Orleans Street, and the second at an intersection approximately 2 blocks away. There were multiple reports of other devices. Those reports turned out to be misinformation or not actual functioning devices. Those are the only 2 devices that we've been able to recover that were functional. Both devices were rendered safe on scene. We did obtain surveillance footage showing Jabbar placing the devices where they were found. 2 other, as I said before, 2 other items of interest were determined not to be IEDs. A little bit about Jabbar. Jabbar himself was born in the United States and is a U.S. military veteran. We are looking in everything in his life. While we have interviewed many people who know Jabbar, we still need to talk to others. Whether you know Jabbar personally, worked with him, served in the military, or saw him in New Orleans or Texas, we need to talk to you. You may not think you have relevant information, but what you know could tie in to one of our investigative leads. Specifically, we want to talk to anyone who was in the French Quarter on New Year's Eve or early on New Year's Day. That includes people spotted near one of the 2 IEDs on Bourbon Street. The IED was inside a cooler, and many people stopped and looked at the cooler and then continued on their way. Let's be clear, again, we do not believe at this point these people are involved in this incident in any way. We want to speak to them as witnesses and want to know what they saw and when. I went down to the crime scene last night. It is very hard to put into words what it looked like and how difficult it was to see. Anyone with information can call us at 1-800-CALL-FBI or send digital tips to fbi.gov/Bourbon Street attack. Early this morning, evidence response teams finished their work at the crime scene. Bourbon Street has been turned over to the city of New Orleans. As you know, there's also an FBI investigation in Las Vegas. We are following up on all potential leads and not ruling everything out. However, at this point, there is no definitive link between the attack here in New Orleans and the one in Las Vegas. And again, I'll preface, as I close, I'll preface everything with what I started with in the beginning, which was this is very early in an investigation like this. Again, our thoughts and prayers are with the victims of this tragedy and everyone impacted across the country. They remain at the heart of our investigation. I also, although I've only been on the ground here a short time, I also want to express a sincere appreciation for our partners here, which include the U.S. Attorney's Office, HSI, ATF, the New Orleans PD, the Louisiana State Police, the Governor's Office, and countless others. At this point, I'm going to turn it over to the Special Agent in charge of ATF here, Josh Jackson.
Hey, good afternoon. As stated, my name is Joshua Jackson. I am the Special Agent in charge for the ATF New Orleans Field Division. And ATF's primary mission is preventing, reducing, and solving violent crime throughout the United States and abroad. Solving part is the focus of this investigation. ATF resources that have been brought to bear to the city and to focus with our federal, state, and local partners have been our national response team. We spoke about the scene that's still being processed now. The national response team of ATF is a team of certified fire investigators, certified explosive specialists, fire engineers, electrical engineers. These folks will give us additional investigative leads to help the investigative team identify what happened at the location in Mandeville and identify how that fire started and move the investigation forward from there. Additional resources that ATF has brought to bear into the city is our ATF Special Response Team. This is a tactical team capable of handling any sort of enforcement operation. This team is deployed, on set, and ready for the Sugar Bowl today. This team is also made available to the Louisiana State Police and also New Orleans Police Department to assist with any efforts that they may have during this period. Additional resources, as the governor alluded to, he executed executive powers and had an emergency declared to where ATF was able to tap in to Emergency Support Function 13 resources. This allowed us to bring additional explosive detection canines so that we can safely sweep the city and safely sweep the Super Bowl in preparation for the game today. These resources will still be in the city as we lead up to the Super Bowl and through Mardi Gras. These type of ATF resources will be here. The last resources ATF has brought to bear, and probably the most important one, is our victim witness coordinators. These folks come in and they provide resources to the victims and the family members that have suffered greatly during this tragedy. The entire city hurts, but the victims and the family members are in need of resources and care long after this investigation wraps up. This time next year to be hard for the families and friends who suffered during this event. So our victim witness coordinators are working with the FBI, the City of New Orleans coordinators to provide resources to these folks out here. And as we move forward, ATF will be committed. We will work with the investigative team moving this investigation forward, but also we'll be here to make sure the city is safe and prepared as we move into the Super Bowl. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to our mayor of this great city, New Orleans. Madam Mayor.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Well, good morning once again. And I just want to just echo my thank yous to the unified command of our law enforcement partners and at every single level, federal, state, and governor. Governor, thank you for your partnership. Yeah, thank you. I also want to thank the residents and the visitors of the city of New Orleans for your patience, for your support, and most of all, your prayers. Our hearts and prayers continue to go out to the victims' families, and the city of New Orleans, we're resilient. And as I stated on yesterday, my focus in terms of a priority has been on our victims. As you've heard, that yes, the FBI was able to clear Bourbon Street. And what that meant also for me in this city was that we were able to remove our victims, identify them, and notify their families. Real reverence. They mattered, the families matter, and matter to the city of New Orleans. In addition to that, I want to just thank again our federal partners in Washington, listening to my plea personally for the additional resources to allow for the scene to be cleared, and again, attending to our victims. I walked by each one, and I did the sign of cross in my own way, because reverence, again, is important. So while we have been able to have Bourbon Street returned back to the city of New Orleans, and the due diligence has been done, that then allowed me to give the go-ahead to begin the cleaning of Bourbon Street. That started happening in the morning about 2 a.m. It was completed before 8 a.m. this morning. But that has really set the tone, I would say, and with the confidence that I have in the law enforcement partners, all of the resources that have been activated, how we have made sure that safety continues to be our top priority, how our assets have been deployed strategically, again, for the safety and the protection of our visitors and our residents in the city. And because of that, the confidence is there to reopen Bourbon Street to the public prior to game time today. The first order will be to allow for vendors to come in and service the businesses. That's important in order for us to stand up activation, as you know, Governor. And so with that, I want to reassure the public that the city of New Orleans is not only ready for game day today, but we're ready to continue to host large-scale events in our city because we are built to host at every single turn. I want to, again, thank all of those who responded to the FBI's call for information and tips. As you heard, that has been useful. Continue to do that. The investigation is still active and absolutely under the FBI's leadership. We will continue to operate and cooperate as we always have. So I want to also thank all of our partners for the added resources for victim and crisis management. We know that that's, again, important. Working with our partner, the Greater New Orleans Foundation, we have set up a fund for our victims' families for not only today but into the future. As you heard, this is going to be a long process for our people. So with that, the city of New Orleans, and with all of my confidence, we are ready. And we could not get here, again, without the unified presence, support, and cooperation. We are stronger together. And I want to say, again, thank you so much. Thank you, Governor. So once again, the Governor would like me to reiterate that Bourbon Street will be prepared for full activation before game time today. We know 3 p.m., so we're working towards 2:30 p.m. But prior to game time, the kickoff, Bourbon Street will be restored. So we're hard at work now. Our teams are now, and of course, working with our business community to serve our public and serve our residents and our visitors alike.
In closing, I want to rest people assured. Right now in the city of New Orleans, there is an unprecedented amount of law enforcement resources that are being utilized to close out and to hunt down and to finalize this investigation. I want to thank the FBI and all of our federal partners for the amount of resources they have poured into the city. This type of event can happen in any city. And that's the tragedy of it. And I think it's important for people to understand that to protect our citizens in America from evil, you have to crush it. You can't go out there and placate it. You can't go out there and say, oh, I'm going to put this in place and that in place and hope that evil doesn't show up on your doorstep, because it will. You have to crush it. And that's what we're going to do here. We're going to put it all behind us. We're going to continue to keep the victims, those that are in the hospital, either fighting for their lives or trying to recover, in our thoughts and in our prayers. But you know, this morning, and I don't want to single out just one news source, but I just happened to turn on Fox and Friends, and that was a young man who was interviewed, who was actually on Bourbon Street during this horrific act of terrorism. And they closed out by asking him, what now? And I think he summed it up. He said, look, we can't live in fear, because fear will paralyze us. He said, we come down to the city to enjoy ourselves and to entertain ourselves and to be with our friends and with our families, because that's who we are. Louisiana invented hospitality. The people of this city care for each other. And believe you me, we care about each one of the lives that were lost in this city in that. We will never forget them. But it would be a tragedy if we let their losses be snuffed out because of fear. This city will be back. We will be open to family and friends and loved ones who want some time to relax from the pressures of life. And so today, we're going to have us a sugar bowl. We're going to enjoy ourselves. We're going to keep those, again, who have lost loved ones in mind. And we're going to get on to the business of this city and this great country. With that, I'll take any questions.
Governor, this is for you and the Assistant Director. The message has really changed since yesterday. Yesterday, the FBI said that people should be vigilant, that he did not act alone, that he likely had help. And now you're coming out the very next day and saying he was a lone wolf, everything is safe, the game moves on, everybody had a good time. How can you be so sure just 12 hours later?
Well, we're going to bring him up. All right, but here's what I want to remind everyone. Like, I was a deputy sheriff. Right? I worked in a jail. I worked on the street. I worked on the interstate. I served warrants. I can tell you. Look, in today's world, I get it. Information, we get information like that. Everybody lives in a 15-second TikTok video. We think that life operates like it does on our phones, and it just doesn't. Information changes. In fact, that's why we ask the media for patience. We get information, like I said, putting that, no one dumps 1,000-piece jigsaw puzzle and puts it together in 5 seconds. Okay? And what I would tell you is that I appreciate the fact that what we did was we're under-promising and over-delivering today. And I think that's important. And I want to remind something. Look, because over the last decade, law enforcement has taken it on the chin, unfairly. And there are great men and women serving in the FBI, in ATF, in Louisiana State Police, in New Orleans PD. Our sheriffs have been unbelievable in this. And I tell you, they want to protect you all. And we have to trust them. And sometimes the information we put out, we end up finding out that it may be incorrect. But guess what? What we're doing here is something that I think is important. It's called transparency. And look, something may change again. Here's what I do know, though. Right now, this is one of the safest places on earth. That doesn't mean that nothing can't happen.
Thank you, Governor. And to echo exactly, I think the governor put it eloquently, as could be said. In a lot of these instances, I also had the opportunity to deploy to Boss Bomb, and I will tell you, this is almost carbon copy to Boss Bomb. as far as the inaccurate reporting that comes up. And what the governor said is we want to be transparent with the public. Years of the FBI not being transparent, we're being as transparent as we possibly can. Unfortunately, as we're being transparent, unfortunately for that, there is some information that we have to go back and recorrect. And in this particular incident, you heard the resources that we brought, that the other state and locals have brought. We've had 24 hours now to go through media, to go through phones, to interview people, to analyze those videos, analyze other databases. And after all of that, there's been hundreds and hundreds of leads done just in 24 hours. We're confident at this point that there is no accomplices. And I'll give you an idea of how that information sometimes, a lot of the early reports came out that there were extra people that were setting the coolers down, right? It turns out those were just patrons on the street that were looking inside the coolers, right? We didn't know that at first, so we had to kind of track all that down and put that to rest. So that's just an example, one of the pieces of information, but there were other pieces of information that after we got our feet under us a little bit and on the ground here, we were able to put together a much more accurate picture of the subject and his attention.
Most recent death toll, we just wanted to double check.
Yes.
14, not 15?
Yeah. 14, and then the shooter himself would be 15 total, to include the shooter.
And the terrorists wearing the IEDs, were the IEDs pipe bombs, and have you discovered a remote detonator anywhere? And when you said that you have surveillance footage of the suspect planting those IEDs, what time roughly were they planted?
Yeah, those roughly a couple hours. I don't have the exact times in front of me. A couple hours prior to the attack, probably after midnight. I want to say 1 or 2 in the morning, but I can't.
Left the area and came back.
Correct. That's our assumption now. I mean, we still have a lot to work through. We're getting more surveillance video and everything else, but that's the assumption.
Was he wearing suicide sweeps being done on Bourbon Street? Would there have been canines out on New Year's Eve? Would there have been bomb sweeps done?
Look, let me just say this, and either Joe or Rob will correct me. Look, a bomb dog doesn't operate like a drug dog, right? On Bourbon Street, there's a lot of senses, right? A lot of smells. I don't think you can run a bomb dog down Bourbon Street with thousands of people there and be able to sniff out a bomb. What we've been doing, what they have been doing, is certainly a complete sweep of the quarter because of the limited amount of traffic that's been out there. Let me just say this. I think this may help. It would be my hope that as some additional time goes through, maybe closer to maybe the beginning of next week, we will, if we've got it to what extent buttoned up as we could, I would work with the FBI and the city, and maybe we can come up with a timeline to be able to get you those information, kind of walk everyone through from day one through. I think it's extremely premature, and you're really putting us on some speculative grounds to ask some of those questions, because again, it's only been 24 hours. I mean, can you imagine how far we've come in 24 hours? So, hold, well, we'll go one at a time.
Being done to make Bourbon Street safer tonight than it was New Year's Eve? Are temporary bollards being brought in to block off the street, and why weren't those used on New Year's Eve?
Well, look, here's what I'm going to say. Every time some bad guy does something like this, there's what we call an after-action review. Because, again, nothing is 100%. We have reinforced the area. We have deployed some additional types of assets. I personally think it's up to the city or other. I don't like to give specifics because I don't like to tell the enemy what we got. But I can tell you we're in better shape than we were before.
We have time for 2 more questions.
Director, can you speak to the Mandeville scene? And some neighbors at that site told us they smelled smoke early in the morning. Was there a fire there? Any kind of burning happening?
Yeah,
great. Do you still believe that fire happened after the suspect was killed?
That's correct. Yeah, I'll move to AT. I do want to address the suicide vest question. I want to kill that one right away. Okay. There was no evidence that the subject was wearing a suicide vest at all. So I will turn the Mandeville stuff over to ATF.
Yeah, as to the fire at the Mandeville scene, so our working theory now is that the fire started after Jabbar was already deceased. There's a lot of different ways that can happen. You could have different time devices. You could have a long cord that extended that time. You could also have pressure cookers that were put on top of the stove filled with gasoline, and then it went off. There's a lot of different ways to do it, but that is why our ATF National Response Team is here to answer those questions and get that investigative lead back to our team. So more to come on that. We're still processing that scene. We're out there right now.
Are you able to assess what type of how he became radicalized over all of this time? What brought him to Bourbon Street? Do we understand whether any international travel involved? What led him down this path to this sort of radicalization?
Sure, a lot of questions we're still asking ourselves. We know that he specifically picked out Bourbon Street. Not quite sure why. I mean, I think one can assume that it was lots of people New Year's Eve, with a target for an attack. That's the stuff in the coming days, as far as that path to radicalization, that we're really going to be digging into and making a priority of. So, what I can tell you right now is that he was 100% inspired by ISIS, and so we're digging through more of the social media, more interviews, working with some of our other partners to ascertain just how to ascertain a little bit more about that connection.
Oh, we're gonna do one more. Kate.
Right there. You've had your hand up for a while.
Kate.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah. It's actually for Special Agent Ryan. Sir,
I prefer those. I would you.
In order to reassure people, would you be able to explain the analysis and evidence that has led to this most recent understanding that he was a lone actor and that there is at this point, at least from your understanding, no further danger to the public?
Sure. I think a lot of that, multiple interviews, the hundreds of interviews that we've conducted so far, the social media review that we've done of his accounts, by my count now, the 5 devices we have, the 3 cell phones and the 2 laptops, been able to initially triage or go through that, and there is just nothing to indicate through call records, through anything on those devices, through interviews, through anything in our systems, that he was aided in this attack by anybody. And again, I have to caveat, like the governor said, it's just 24 hours into it. And that could change, but right now we've got a much better picture and much more confidence on what we were dealing with than we were just 24 hours ago.
All right, look, thank y'all so very much. Again, we are going to try to get y'all as much information as possible. So any additional information will be put out through press releases. Thank you so very much.
Are we going to be making Bourbon Street a pedestrian only, or are we going to be allowing cars to drive?
All right, you've been listening to a news conference in New Orleans as officials there give an update on the attack on Bourbon Street. Some new details coming from this news conference that really countered some previous information that had been given. So we do want to give you an update, kind of recap things here briefly. The FBI is now saying they are confident that this suspect, Shamsuddin Jabbar, acted alone. They just at the very end there kind of outlined some of the evidence that they believe kind of showed that. They talked about videos that he posted online pledging support for ISIS. The public is not believed to be in any danger. We do know that those explosive devices, they talked about explosive devices that were found. They don't believe the public is in any danger at this time. Bourbon Street, in fact, is going to reopen this afternoon in time for the Sugar Bowl. Surveillance video, they say, showed the suspect acting alone, placing the explosives. They talked about a couple of people that they had seen before in surveillance video, maybe looking at those coolers that they are hoping to talk to just as witnesses. And they also said there is no definitive link between this attack in New Orleans and the blast outside Las Vegas, but they said that certainly could change. Well, that is going to do it for us here on Fox 35 News Plus. We appreciate you sticking with us this afternoon here. We're actually going to, since we are already over time a little bit, we're going to take a quick break here, and then we're going to come back and actually cover a little bit more. We did hear from a security expert earlier today, an interview that we want to play for you, and then Congressman Mike Waltz of Central Florida, who is going to be President-elect Trump's incoming national security advisor. He was on Fox and Friends this morning talking about this incident. We want to play that for you as well. So we're going to go a little bit longer here on Fox 35 News Plus. Just going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back after this.
You're watching Fox 35 News Plus, streaming on Fox Local.
Welcome back into Fox 35 News Plus. Seeing a live look there of Bourbon Street. That is expected to reopen this afternoon around 3:30 Eastern Time, 2:30 local time there in New Orleans. But this is an incident that had got people worried for their safety in public, and security expert Dave Benson was on Good Day Orlando this morning to give some helpful information for folks.
Listen, this was a somber day yesterday, Dave, as you know. Not only this terrorist attack in New Orleans, but a suspected terrorist attack that happened in Las Vegas. And a lot of people are nervous about being in these populated places.
Yeah, and it's certainly understandable, but to put some of this in perspective, your viewers are aware that I've been preaching for quite some time now that everybody needs to have a plan. And if you're going to go to these high occupancy or crowded events, you need to have an opportunity. How are you going to escape? How are you going to get back and reunite with your party and basically have a plan? We don't want people to be fearful. We want them to be mindful. But this is becoming a reality now, particularly in the holiday season, and we have to take appropriate precautions.
So what kind of things should you be looking for, right? And we've talked about this before, right? If you're in a crowded movie theater, you want to know where the exits are. If you know, those types of things. But, you know, if you're out in an open public setting, you know, like folks were on Halloween in downtown Orlando or on Bourbon Street, what do you do?
Well, you have to have your head on a swivel. This is challenging, particularly when adult beverages are involved, let's be honest. But you really need to take some responsibility for your own safety and security. The authorities are going to do the best they can based upon the information that they have. But there is no such thing as perfect security, so you have to be prepared to take action. Get away from where the perceived threat is. Don't follow the crowd so you'd be trampled. Just get out of that situation as quick as possible. Another important one that we see over and over again is people lose their parties. So have a reunification plan. If we have something happen, where are we going to meet up? Well away from where the situation is. So these are some basic things that we should all be doing now when we come to crowded events.
Dave, I want to talk about some of the concerning links between the suspect in New Orleans and the suspect in Las Vegas. And we have just learned that both of these men are Army veterans, potentially had served on the same Army base or at the same Army base together, both renting vehicles from Turo, which is people who, rent out their vehicles privately as opposed to going to, one of the, the big rental car places. Both of these vehicles were EV vehicles. Both of these incidents happened on the same day. Are these just all coincidences? What are investigators looking at?
Well, it's a great question. And in the final analysis, there's more to come. We don't know what the authorities know and what they found out. But I'm not a big fan of coincidences in my line of work. And when you put more than one coincidence together, a lot of times you have a trail and connectivity. So we'll see. But these are all troubling aspects of these two cases, for sure.
Dave, I think it's also hard for people to understand how somebody who served the country could then turn on the country. I mean, it's not the first time it's happened, but it is something that is concerning for people.
It is. And whether it be someone that conducts espionage against their government or considering a violent act. In this case, this is what, if in fact this is an ISIS-inspired event or events, this is exactly the type of individual that they're looking for. Maybe they're down in their luck. Maybe there's financial issues, personal problems at home. They feel like they're a failure, and offering an opportunity to become a hero. And to become a martyr. So as awkward or unusual as that might seem to most of us, to certain folks within our society that are troubled and having the ability, not the ability to cope, this is part of the ISIS playbook.
Now, we should also note just again that we did hear from the FBI saying at this time there is no definitive link right now that they see between the attack in New Orleans and the blast in Las Vegas. Obviously, they did couch that by saying there's still more work to be done, but at this time, no definitive link between the two. Well, Florida Congressman Mike Waltz, who is the incoming National Security Advisor tapped by President-elect Donald Trump, he was on Fox and Friends this morning, and he talked about the need for increased security in response to these terrorist attacks.
Look, two things. One, we've got to take a hard look at our defenses. First and foremost, close our border, where we've had over 300 people on the terrorist watch list traverse our border in the last years, number one. Number two, I'll remind everyone, just in the last year, we had 8 ISIS operatives rolled up, surveilling sites to hit in 3 different cities. A number of them from that cell are still unaccounted for, based out of Tajikistan. And then there's the defensive aspect of this, the law enforcement and intelligence, and then there's the offensive aspect. And taking a hard look at our strategy overseas, our posture, our basing for our special operators and our intelligence operatives to keep a lid on ISIS, Al-Qaeda, and others, whether it's Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria, and other places where they may be plotting and planning to hit us.
You know, Congressman, I want to put, if you could put your door kicker hat back on as a Green Beret. When I talk with people in the community, when I talk with law enforcement, they all tell me the same thing. We're focused on the wrong things. We're not focusing on the threats to this country right now. Are you hearing that as well? That they look at yesterday as a mission failure. We had Americans that died. And something needs to change immediately. I mean, it's great that we got the former president coming back in, but something could happen between that time.
You know, you're absolutely right, but I want to echo others in praising law enforcement that literally ran to the sound of gunfire, ran into a hail of bullets, and stayed engaged and took this son of a, just took him out. Right. And you're right. It was a failure. We need to look at whether we had intel indicators. We need to look at, how he was radicalized online. I'm particularly interested. We'll be looking to the National Counterterrorism Center. Was he externally planned, plotted, and directed from ISIS operatives overseas, or was this truly homegrown? If it was homegrown, then was there some type of imam, mosque, or other type of radicalization element that is not only radicalizing him but others internally? But again, guys, I can't emphasize enough, close the border, secure our sovereignty, and that is completely unacceptable. The entire world knows that we have an open border. They intend to hit us, and they are pushing people into our interior to do just that. And they know that if we're looking internally at ourselves, we can't be defending ourselves abroad. So that entire counterterrorism strategy, particularly now that they have a caliphate again in Afghanistan, where ISIS and Al-Qaeda are brewing, we just have to do a complete day one relook.
Hey, Congressman Sandra here. So as this story moves forward and hour by hour, we anticipate that we will get more information about all of this. As the incoming national security advisor, what is it that you are going to be looking for as the feds start to give us more information?
Well, number one, that external plotting versus internal radicalization, how that happened. Number two, I find it an amazing coincidence, but I don't think it is a coincidence, that you had two attacks renting from the same site, both veterans, that you could have a more radicalized and broader cell. Don't forget, you also had an Afghan that was stopped from making election day attacks. So this is why getting President Trump's cabinet in is so important. We need Governor Noam at DHS. We need Kash Patel at FBI. We need Pete Hegseth at DOD. This is an across the government look. Marco Rubio at State, and of course Ratcliffe at CIA, and Gabbard, Tulsi Gabbard at DNI. That has to be in place day one, guys, because this is a moment in transition of vulnerability, and President Trump is going to project, because he is a leader of strength, the narrative that we project on day one will be just important, and that's having our people in place.
And lastly, Congressman, during this transition period, just 19 days to go, are you currently in contact and in getting briefings from your counterpart, Jake Sullivan?
I have been in contact with Jake Sullivan, the current national security advisor, through the last 24 hours. They are trying to piece together information, but we're not waiting on what we're just getting from this White House. Everybody has their feelers out so that we keep President Trump as informed as possible. And I can tell you what, he is ready to go day one, 19 days to go.
Real quickly, because we have to go, Congressman. I'm not asking you to reveal classified information, but was there chatter about this guy?
Not that I've been briefed, not that we know of at this point. But again, we've got to look. The National Counterterrorism Center, that's one of the reasons they exist, and our intel community is fully engaged to see what was going on from abroad.
Congressman, appreciate your time today.
Thank you, Congressman.
So still many questions to be answered in this investigation. Again, a live look right now at Bourbon Street in New Orleans. Things have been cleaned up there. We expect Bourbon Street to reopen this afternoon. Officials there in New Orleans trying to assure people that it is safe, that there is no ongoing threat to the community there, and those kind of things. Kind of reversing course from yesterday when the word was that there were likely accomplices involved in this. They are now saying that they are confident that the Bourbon Street terrorist acted alone in this. So that was the big takeaway from this news conference that just wrapped up a little bit ago, but obviously still very much a developing story that we will stay on top of here at Fox 35 as well. So that is going to do it for us here on Fox 35 News Plus this morning, or well, now this afternoon. We will be back here at 4 o'clock. We'll have the latest updates on this case in New Orleans, but keep it here on Fox Local for more news throughout the day. We appreciate you joining us, and have a good day.
You're watching Good Day Orlando Extra on Fox 35 and streaming on the Fox Local app.
Well, good morning, everybody. It is Good Day Orlando Extra time. I'm Deborah Cho.
You sound like Mariah Carey. It's time.
It's time.
I'm Danielle Knox. Good to see you this morning.
And I'm Amy Kaufeld. All right, there is a lot to talk about.
Yeah.
Listen, New Year's Day, you guys, was a really tough day for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And, you know, I thought about yesterday, thinking, you know, it's supposed to be this celebratory day in our country, and nobody wanted to start off the day that we did yesterday. So there were two, obviously, big stories yesterday. And as you guys know, the first big story happened in New Orleans. Sadly, the death toll up to 15 there. But we also want to talk a little bit about what happened in Las Vegas. And they are trying to figure out if these two stories are connected. So this is a Tesla Cybertruck that was rented off of the Turo app. They believe rented in Colorado and then driven from Colorado over to Nevada. It pulls up to the Trump Hotel. It was only outside for a few seconds before this happened. And one of the things that was interesting, and Danielle and I were talking a lot about this morning, is that Elon Musk was very vocal on Twitter or X about this story yesterday. For a couple of reasons, is that he was able to, there's so many cameras right inside these vehicles and pointing outward that they